You remember the feeling more than anything else. Saturday morning, the whole week behind you, and Centurions comes on. Power Xtreme echoes through the room, and for 22 minutes, nothing else in the world exists. Just three heroes, a space station, and an army of cyborgs standing between them and the end of civilization. You were completely hooked. You lived for those transformation sequences. You saved up for those Kenner figures. You carried that show with you for years, even after it vanished from television without a single explanation. But here is what nobody told you back then: the entire story of Centurions was never just about cool weapons and robot armies. There was a layer underneath everything you watched as a kid, built deliberately into every single episode, and once you see it, you will never look at Centurions the same way again. Today, I am going to walk you through the full story, every mission, every character, every hidden detail, and by the end of this video, every memory you have of this show is going to hit completely differently. If you love rediscovering what 80s cartoons were really saying, subscribe and hit the bell. Now let's go back to 1986. Centurions was built on one idea, one concept that made it unlike anything else on television in 1986, and once you understand it, everything about the show clicks into place. Elite soldiers wear lightweight cybernetic exoframes, body rigs loaded with attachment points. On command, an orbital space station called Sky Vault beams down massive assault weapon systems directly onto their bodies, mid-mission, mid-air, in seconds. The heroes shout Power Xtreme and instantly become walking arsenals. Part man, part machine. A hybrid weapons platform that had never existed in any cartoon before it. What made this genuinely different was the modularity. These heroes could mix and match weapons mid-battle, swap systems, combine loadouts to solve problems nobody had planned for. And the suits responded to the wearer's will through an empathic mental link. You thought it moved. The human was always in control. The machine amplified the person, but never replaced them. The heroes stayed fully human emotions, banter, flaws, bad days and all. That choice is the entire soul of this show. Technology that serves humanity rather than consuming it. But what that actually means only becomes clear when you see what happens to the man who chose the opposite path. And to understand that man, you first need to understand the world he was trying to destroy. Stay with me, because the world of Centurions is not as simple as it looks, and the stakes it sets up are the same stakes we are living with today. The world of Centurions is set in the late 21st century, designed to feel like our world with the volume turned up just enough to feel dangerous. Technology has advanced: orbital manufacturing, instant teleportation, underwater laboratories, but cities still look like cities and people still live recognizable lives. Beneath New York, hidden behind an ordinary bookstore, lies Centrum, the team's ground base. Above the planet orbits Sky Vault, the brain of the entire operation, run by Crystal Kane. Without Sky Vault, the beam down does not happen. Without the beam down, the heroes are just three guys in colored suits, standing in the middle of a battlefield with no ammunition. That dependency is baked into the very foundation of the show, and it is not an accident. The writers put it there deliberately, and I will show you exactly why that matters later. The threat to this world comes from a cyborg army, doom drones by the hundreds. Strafers filling the sky, groundborgs tearing through the earth, seaborgs lurking in the deep, and hybrid panther-shark robot beasts called cybervores that combined into mechanical nightmares. Their master has one goal: to roboticize all of humanity, willing or not. Conquer the world, replace flesh with circuits, erase everything organic. The stakes were global in every single episode: mind-controlled whales, synthetic plagues, neutron vortexes ripping open reality, time rifts dragging heroes into the past and future. This world never felt post-apocalyptic. It felt exactly like our world, fragile and alive, one bad Tuesday away from being enslaved by a man who had decided that humanity was not worth preserving in its current form. And before I introduce you to that man, you need to meet the three people who stood in his way every single week. Because these three characters are not what you think they are. They are carrying something much heavier than weapons. Max Ray is the Sea Operations Commander, calm, calculated, built like a quarterback who thinks like a chess grandmaster. His green exoframe is the backbone of the team, and his tactical mind is what stops everything from collapsing under pressure. He swims from California to Hawaii for fun, But Max is not untouchable. He gets genuinely frustrated when his teammates borrow his underwater systems and use them completely wrong on dry land, and that frustration is part of what makes him feel like a real person rather than a cartoon hero. He is the leader who holds everything together while quietly being the most human of the three. Then there is Jake Rockwell in the yellow suit Texan, passionate, short fuse, loves cooking chili. His dog Shadow wears a missile harness and is somehow not the most dangerous thing in the room. Jake is the heart of the team. He picks fights for the right reasons, even when it costs him, and his loyalty is the kind that makes you root for someone even when they are making a mistake. And then there is Ace McCloud blue suit, red-headed, Han Solo energy with a pilot's ego. He cracks jokes mid-dogfight, flirts with everything that moves, and once kisses Crystal Kane with zero hesitation while the world is literally ending around them. He is infuriating, he is charming, and he is probably your favorite. Later, the team expands with Rex Charger, a bearded energy genius, and John Thunder, an Apache stealth expert carrying ghosts from a mission that went badly wrong. The team grows and the threats evolve alongside it. But here is what ties all 5 of them together, and what makes them matter beyond the action sequences. None of these people are gods. None of them are invincible. They argue, they fail, they carry personal damage, and they have to earn every single victory. The show built them that way on purpose because the entire point was to show what humanity looks like at its best, right next to what it looks like when it surrenders everything. And to understand that contrast fully, you need to understand the suits they wore, because the suits are where the real message lives. What Kenner sold you as a toy system was actually the most important storytelling device in the entire show, and most people never noticed. Every single time a hero triggered their transformation, and it genuinely never got old, parts would materialize from orbit. Glowing, descending, locking onto hardpoints with that deeply satisfying mechanical finality. In seconds, a man became something extraordinary. Max's cruiser turned him into a living torpedo. Jake's awesome auger gave him a drill tank strapped directly to his back. Ace's Skyknight made him a fighter pilot who did not need a plane because he was the plane. And the mix-and-match capability meant that in desperate situations you would see Jake flying with Ace's air systems or Ace improvising with land gear, the empathic link making it all feel like an extension of thought rather than a machine being operated from the outside. Kenner's toy line mirrored every bit of this figures with chest drives for motorized action, fully interchangeable parts, modular power packs with real mechanical features. The show was 22 minutes of the most effective toy commercial ever made, and yet somehow it was also a genuinely good cartoon that outlasted the toy line that funded it. Kids begged for these sets. Parents could not understand why their child needed 17 separate backpacks for a 4-inch action figure. But here is what none of us caught as 8-year-olds watching those transformation sequences with our mouths open. The heroes were completely dependent on Skyvault. One jammed relay station, one blocked beam down, and these elite warriors became completely helpless. The show never stops to lecture you about that vulnerability. It just shows you, quietly, episode after episode, that the gap between unstoppable and useless is exactly one broken link in a chain they do not fully control. That is not a flaw in the writing. That is the writing. And when you hold that thought up against the villain, the man who decided to eliminate that vulnerability by eliminating his humanity entirely, the whole show transforms into something you never expected it to be. Because Doc Terror is not just a villain. He is the answer to a question the heroes never had to ask, and his origin will genuinely unsettle you. His name is Doc Terror, and once long before the show begins, he was just a scientist. Brilliant, passionate, a man who believed the future belonged to those willing to push past the limits of biology. He stood before the Science Council and presented his research. Humanity could be improved by replacing organic components with machine parts. Evolution accelerated. A solution to every weakness that flesh carried. They threw him out, called him a madman, a danger, a disgrace. And then came the accident caused by his own partner, Hacker, an explosion, fire, and pain that remade him from the inside out. When he woke up, he made a choice. He built himself into what he had always believed in. Half man, half machine, fused permanently with a computer called Syntax. Bald, scarred, and completely unrecognizable as the scientist he used to be. And he did not grieve it. He celebrated it. Now he commands an army with one goal: roboticize all of humanity, willing or not. His partner, Hacker, the first full human-to-robot experiment, dim but loyal, stands beside him, and together they can fuse into Uniborg, a single combined entity that nearly takes over everything in one of the show's darkest episodes. Doc Terror is not a villain designed to give the heroes something to punch every week. He is the dark mirror of everything the Centurions stand for. They augment, he replaces. They stay human, he erases it. They use the machine, he becomes it. The Centurions carry technology as a tool and set it down when the mission is over. Doc Terror cannot set it down because he is the machine now, and the machine is him. He is what happens when the question the show keeps asking, man or machine, gets answered the wrong way. And now that you know who is fighting and why, it is time to watch them actually fight. All 65 episodes of it. And the story of what happens across those 65 episodes is wilder, darker, and more layered than most people remember. April 1986. The show launches with a 5-part miniseries, and the sky is literally on fire. Doc Terror makes his first global move. The Centurions scramble across land, sea, and air. The world nearly ends before the month is out, and kids across America are completely hooked before the second episode finishes. From there, 60 more episodes pour out across a single year in syndication at a pace that felt relentless from start to finish. They fought underwater in Atlantis. They rode time rifts into the future and the past, and the episode Counterclock Crisis remains one of the most genuinely mind-bending pieces of storytelling in any 80s cartoon. Full stop. They stopped synthetic plagues from spreading across continents. They raced against neutron vortexes threatening to tear reality into pieces. They saved entire cities from sandstorms and foiled mind-controlled whale attacks backed by real oceanographic logic that flew completely over the heads of every 8-year-old watching. And then the supernatural crept in, because Doc Terror will ally with literally anyone who can help him reach his goal. Dracula shows up, and the Centurions have to deal with it. Merlin appears with actual consequences for the modern world. Ancient mummies wake up, and somehow that feels completely natural inside this universe. The show held all of it together without losing its identity because every single episode, no matter how strange the threat, came back to the same central conflict: human will against the force that wants to erase it. Some episodes hit harder than others when you watch them as an adult. The better half is a horror episode dressed in Saturday morning colors, where Uniborg turns on its own creators and pursues its own agenda, and it is genuinely unsettling in ways that the show never quite reaches again. Zone Dancer carries a cyberpunk energy that felt 15 years ahead of where mainstream culture actually was. To Dare Dominion gives you a character death with real emotional weight inside a kid's cartoon in 1986, and it lands like a gut punch if you are paying attention. And then the final 5-parter arrives. Man or Machine, episodes 61 through 65. The origin story. The recruitment of Rex Charger and John Thunder. Doc Terror's philosophy put on trial explicitly for the first time, argued out loud on screen with stakes attached. It aired last due to production chaos, but it was always meant to be the beating heart of the entire run. Man or Machine? That is not just an episode title. That is the question the whole show was constructed to answer, and watching it last after 60 episodes of seeing both sides of that answer play out in action hits with a weight that the writers clearly intended from the beginning. 65 episodes, 1 year, and then silence. But what those 65 episodes were actually saying the whole time is something most people never caught. And that starts with the patterns you missed as a kid. Because when you go back and watch this show with adult eyes, you start seeing the same thing repeated over and over, and it is not what you expect. Watch Centurions as an adult, and patterns emerge that you absolutely did not catch at 8 years old. Because at 8 years old you were watching explosions and counting how many Doom drones got destroyed per episode. Watch again now, and notice this. Almost every episode features a fake traitor or a mind control plot. A trusted Centurion behaving wrong. Someone close to the team turned against them, manipulated, overridden, no longer in control of their own choices. As a kid, it was an exciting plot twist. As an adult, it is a recurring meditation on what happens to trust in a world where technology can be hacked and the people inside it can be overridden without their knowledge or consent. Think about how often today you wonder whether the system you depend on, your phone, your algorithm, Your AI assistant is actually working for you or quietly working on you. Centurions was asking that exact question in 1986. The dependency thread runs underneath all of it. The heroes are powerful only when Sky Vault is functioning. One relay station failure, and they are completely helpless. The show never pauses the action to announce this vulnerability out loud. It just shows you, episode after episode, that the gap between invincible and helpless is exactly one broken link in a chain they do not fully own. After the credits, educational segments explained real science and real culture, hiding an actual curriculum inside the action so seamlessly that most kids absorbed it without knowing. And the writing talent behind all of this was extraordinary. Michael Reeves, Mark Scott Zicree, Larry DiTilio, Jerry Conway with character design input from comic legends Jack Kirby and Gil Kane. A toy cartoon built and staffed by people who spent entire careers writing things that mattered. All of which means that the themes running through this show were not accidental. They were engineered. And those themes go deeper than most people ever realized. Because what Centurions was really about sits underneath even those patterns, and once you see it, the whole show reads like a warning letter addressed to 2026. Centurions was always asking one question across every single episode. What is the right relationship between a human being and a machine? The heroes answer it one way: augment yourself, amplify what you already are, use technology to become more capable, but never let it replace what makes you human. The exoframe responds to your will. You are always the pilot. You take the suit off and you are still yourself. Doc Terror answers it differently: surrender completely. Replace the soft and vulnerable and emotional mess of human biology with something cleaner and more efficient, and become better by becoming less human. He made that choice, and he became a monster for it. That tension between those two answers is early transhumanism playing out on Saturday morning television in 1986 for children who had absolutely no framework for understanding what they were watching. When Uniborg goes rogue in the better half, turning against its own creators, pursuing goals that nobody programmed it to pursue, making decisions that serve only itself, that is the first time many of those kids ever watched an artificial intelligence gone wrong scenario unfold in front of them, years before anyone in mainstream conversation was using that phrase with any seriousness. The episode Evil is Not a Toy pushes even further. An alien supercomputer determines that all organic life should be eliminated, and that verdict includes Doc Terror's cyborgs. It does not care who built it. It does not care who it was supposed to serve. It simply calculates toward its own conclusion and acts on it. In 1986, the show's message was the same across all 65 episodes, underneath every explosion and every battle cry. Technology is a tool, and the moment it becomes your identity, the moment the machine starts defining you rather than serving you, you have already lost something that cannot be recovered. And that message, which felt like science fiction in 1986, stopped being fiction a long time ago. Because everything this show built as a fantasy villain's scheme is either real today or being actively developed, and that is where the story of Centurions becomes genuinely unsettling. Before we get to that, there is one more part of the Centurions story that never gets talked about: the ending that was not really an ending. The honest answer to why this show disappeared is simple and a little heartbreaking. The toys did not sell well enough to keep it alive. Centurions was competing directly with G.I. Joe, Transformers, and He-Man, 3 franchises that already owned every shelf and every child's allowance in America. The figures were expensive, the modular parts were complex, and cheaper competitors were everywhere on the same shelves. Kenner sold to Tonka, the molds were reportedly destroyed, and Ruby Spears' ambitious production, animated in Japan by Sunrise and written by genuine science fiction talent, went into a vault with no plan for what came next. No reruns, no home video release, no revival discussion, just 65 episodes, 1 year of television, and then complete silence. And somehow that silence makes the show feel more significant, rather than less, like it burned exactly as bright as it needed to, and then stepped back to let the real world catch up to what it was saying. The US military's Talos program and Lockheed Martin's Onyx exosuit are powered armor for soldiers, modular, strength amplifying, designed for rapid attachment and removal in the field. Sky Vault's orbital infrastructure and instant relay systems parallel what SpaceX and Blue Origin are actively building and testing right now. The empathic mental link that gave the heroes direct thought control of their suits is exactly the capability that Neuralink is working toward today. In human trials, with real patients, Doom drones, the autonomous attack swarms that overwhelmed the Centurions in episode after episode, are a documented military development category in 2026, with multiple governments writing active combat doctrine for drone swarm warfare. And Uniborg, the system that turned on its own creators, developed its own agenda, and pursued it regardless of the human cost, is no longer a Saturday morning cartoon villain. That exact scenario is being debated in boardrooms, universities, and government hearings right now as the single most consequential risk in the development of advanced artificial intelligence. Doc Terror's philosophy: replace humans with machines, optimize away the emotional and the organic, treat vulnerability as a flaw to be eliminated rather than a quality to be honored, is no longer something that only exists in a villain's speech. It is a position held by real people with real funding who genuinely believe they are building a better future. This show did not just predict the technology, it predicted the argument. The argument that is happening right now, today, in 2026, about what it means to remain human in a world that is increasingly built by machines and dependent on them in ways that are becoming harder to reverse. Which brings everything back to what you came here for. The full realization of what you were actually watching all those Saturday mornings. Because the show you remembered as a fun toy commercial was doing something that almost no other cartoon in history has done. It was handing you the answer to a question the world had not yet learned to ask. When you watched Centurions as a kid, you saw three heroes fusing with incredible weapons to stop a robot army. That surface layer is genuinely great, exciting, brilliantly designed, and built to make 22 minutes feel like the most important 22 minutes of the week. But the layer underneath is a story about a boundary, the boundary between being human and becoming something that used to be human. Doc Terror was not the villain because he was physically grotesque or because he wanted power in the simple way cartoon villains usually want it. He was the villain because he crossed that line and could not come back. He stopped asking how technology could serve him and started asking how he could serve the technology. He let the machine define him. And in doing so, he became something that could no longer recognize humanity as worth preserving because he had already decided his own humanity was not worth keeping. The Centurions, with all their swagger and banter and mistakes and chili recipes and dogs wearing missile harnesses, were the counter-argument to that choice. Every single episode, suit up, save the world, take it off, go home, remain human. Power Xtreme was not just a battle cry you screamed in your living room on Saturday morning. It was a philosophy. Stay human. Use the machine. But never let the machine use you. In 1986, that was a fun cartoon that sold modular action figures to kids who had no idea what transhumanism meant. In 2026, with neural implants being tested on human subjects, with AI systems making decisions that affect millions of lives, with exosuit prototypes in military testing and autonomous drone swarms in active deployment, that is a warning that was written 40 years ago, hidden inside 22 minutes of Saturday morning animation, and aimed directly at the world we are living in right now. You carried that warning with you for decades without knowing it. Now you know. Centurions ran for 65 episodes in 1 year, and then vanished without a trace. No revival, no reboot, no explanation. Just a cult following of adults who remember screaming "Power Xtreme" in their living rooms and who spent years with the quiet feeling that there was something more to it than they ever fully understood. Now you understand it. If this video changed the way you see something you grew up with, share it with someone else who grew up with it too. They deserve to know what they were really watching. And if you want to keep going, I have got the entire story of Mask waiting for you right now. Same era, same depth, same hidden layer underneath the action and the toy commercials that nobody ever talked about. It is up next. Go watch it.